So it's Friday the 6th of February 2026 and Isaac Herzog is due to arrive in Australia in a couple of days. This guy having a sleep here. That's cop car, I'd say that one. Yeah, this guy's having a snooze. I'm at Punchbowl. Yeah, it's pretty chilled and relaxed. There's a few cops arrived already, and there's cops standing there. There's cops over the road, but it's at outside Tony Burke's office, and it's protest against Isaac Herzog's arrival, the president of Israel in Australia. It's about 10 minutes till kick off, and it's a bit scant on the ground down there. I don't know if what's going on, but yeah, I'm sure there'll be more. I'm sure there'll be more turning up eventually, but at this stage, it's looking pretty slim. The pickings, there's freaking nobody there. There's like heaps of flags. So they've organised the flags. There's a fair number of cops. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 cop cars I can see, and at least 5 or more cops I can see as well. There's people here just having their dinner at Domino's. Yeah, I've been to protests here before for refugees and things, and there's been like a lot of numbers of people, but today it's reasonably slim. The pickings are the number of people. It's very slim. Oh, there's a few more inside, but not many. You know, you wouldn't. Yeah, there's not, like, considering it's due to kick off. There's very, very few people. There's the guy. There's one familiar face there from groups before. Oh, they've got this Australian. What's this say? Australia is a crime scene. Always was, always will be. Australia Day equals Invasion Day, home Australia. And then this guy, he's a prominent sort of cleric in the community. Don't know his name either. There's a lot more. There's probably more cops than people here at the moment. And I think Tony Burke's office there's Tony Burke's office in there. So I'll pause for a minute. All right, it's starting to kick off now. They're starting just a chanting, but no. I'm sure there will be speeches eventually. Come in, yeah. We'll see how we go. they just announced, can people come up into the courtyard area? Let's see. So that's, yeah, we're outside Tony Burke's office at Punchbowl. And not sure who this fellow is, but we'll listen to what he has to say.
To acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, which are the Bidjigal of the Darug Nation, and would like to pay our respects and acknowledge any elders and the indigenous people who may be present with us here today. Alhamdulillah, I would like to welcome everyone here, extend my warm greetings, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon everyone here. Most of us are aware why we're here today. We've heard these two words for a long time now, which have become somewhat toxic. Social cohesion. Social cohesion. This term, in its essence, we all agree is a positive thing, but has been used to push a nefarious agenda, and has come to the extreme now that this country, this government of this country, has extended an official invitation to the president, the head of state of Israel. So we're lucky, alhamdulillah, we're blessed to be joined today by all of you, as well as our distinguished speakers. I trust that we'll look forward to the array, the diversity of those who are gathered here today, who are going to speak today. Firstly, I would like to introduce Dr. Peter Slezak. Dr. Slezak is, you may be familiar, is a former Associate Professor of UNSW, University of New South Wales, and known for his work in the philosophy of science and cognitive science. He's also well known for being a prominent advocate for Palestinian rights within Australia. More recently, he was a founding member of the Jewish Council of Australia, and you might say is a leading critic of Zionism within Australia. Dr. Slezak, thank you.
Thanks very much, Zach. Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. Salam alaikum. It's a great privilege for me to join you today. Is that better? You can hear? This is a very difficult moment for all of us, and I want to talk a little about it. In fact, some of the issues that Zach mentioned just in passing. The Labour Friends of Palestine, among many others, have actually asked Tony Burke, whose office we're standing in front of, to refuse to grant the visa to Herzog. He's refused to grant the visas to some bad people, and he's chosen this bad person to let into the country. Yes, shame. And of course, the issue is on character grounds. He's entitled to use character grounds to refuse a visa. But his failing to do that actually makes a mockery of all of the fine words that are said about hate speech and social cohesion and unity and healing. It's all bullshit because they clearly ignore all that when it's convenient for the reasons I'm going to mention. And in particular, you have to think about what they've done, which is pushing through the most far-reaching hate speech laws in history in Australia, and then rolling out the red carpet for Herzog, who was literally found by the United Nations inquiry to have incited a genocide. So hate speech is only when we say rude things, and not when somebody is inciting a genocide. Herzog, in fact, is one of the most recognised and famous inciters of the Gaza genocide, and he was explicitly cited by the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, in its judgment, accepting that the case of genocide is a plausible one, and many other organisations have said so, said it is. The president of the Executive Council of Australian Jury, ECAJ, he called Herzog a man of peace. That tells you a little bit about the attitudes in the Jewish community, I'm sad to say, and among the supporters of Israel. Herzog was cited by Amnesty International as, again, one of the most publicised instances of incitement, and he was explicitly found by the UN Commission of Inquiry as one of the key figures to have incited the Commission of Genocide. Now, the invitation to Herzog was actually issued by the Zionist Federation of Australia, who asked Herzog to come to Australia to express solidarity and healing, which I'll talk about for a minute. But of course that invitation was now extended by the Prime Minister officially. This raises a number of questions. I mean, to put it a bit bluntly, the question is who's running Australia? Is it the government or the enormous influence of the Zionist lobby? I can say, or ask the question, is that anti-Semitic to ask whether the Zionists have a great deal of influence? Well, you know, now they're trying to police our speech, and they're explicitly trying to say that we can't use the word Zionist because that is, you know, disguised language for Jew, but it's not, because Zionism is a political movement, and it's a sinister movement with a very dark history. And so we should insist on being able to say rude things about Zionism.
Hear, hear.
As I will shortly. Now, according to the Israel lobby, they actually have this deluded idea that inviting Herzog is a way to fight anti-Semitism. This is ridiculous. And Foreign Minister Penny Wong claimed that this is important and desired by the Jewish community. They think that this is somehow helping the Jewish community. In fact, I'm going to quote from Albanese, our Prime Minister. He said that I welcome the fact that President Herzog is coming here. He said the nation looks towards uniting. We have too much division, he says. People don't want conflict brought here. Who is bringing conflict here by inviting this divisive insider of a genocide? He went on to say that Herzog and welcoming him leads to a greater sense of unity and social cohesion. This is just deluded bullshit. And it's absurd and offensive. And obviously to all of us, how is it conceivable that inviting Herzog to enhance unity and social cohesion can even be imagined and thought? In the real world, it's hard to imagine anything more likely to create division and hostility to Jews. Anti-Semitism is being encouraged by this kind of action on behalf of the Jewish community to invite out an Israeli leader. The whole point of this is that the invitation of Herzog shows that the feelings of the Jewish community matter more than the feelings of the Palestinians who are watching the genocide of their people. Clearly, those feelings have not exercised the Prime Minister.
Feelings of Zionists.
And in fact, the invitation, of course, is calculated to placate the Jewish community that are devoted to Israel. But the fact that the Jewish community embraces a genocide is, of course, guaranteed to inflame anti-Semitism. And the Prime Minister ought to understand that, and so should Tony Burke. Let me just continue with that thought. The invitation of President Herzog at the request and support from Jewish organisations, it confirms the identification, the conflation of Jews with Israel, and that's exactly what we try and the Palestinians successfully manage to avoid carefully, because we want to be clear that the distinction when we're criticising Zionism or Israel is not criticising Jews, but now the Jews are making sure that we can't make that distinction. That's a very sad and very dangerous development. So rolling out the red carpet for the President of a country committing genocide will not reduce anti-Semitism, but rather the opposite. Now, in a powerful and eloquent speech to federal Parliament, Senator David Shoebridge, who's a great hero and a very articulate spokesman for our cause, he said this invitation is disgraceful and immoral, which is exactly the right thing to say. When someone is accused, he says, of inciting genocide, he said it rather well, you don't invite them for tea. And as he put it, history will judge this moment as we're pandering to Israel, and not least of all in this country, we are silencing critics. The leadership of the Jewish community has sought to exploit the massacre on Bondi to press the government to adopt stronger pro-Israeli line, and of course to crack down on Palestinian solidarity. So I want to say just a couple of words about that. Albanese was spooked, he was panicked after Bondi into adopting all of the draconian McCarthyite-style recommendations by the Special Envoy for Anti-Semitism, Gillian Siegel. These are really the most shocking, oppressive restrictions on what you can say and what you can do, and they're being overseen by a non-elected group of Zionists, basically, who are going to tell us what you can say and what you can't say. And it's going to police political opinion and clamp down on, for example, universities, where they've got to have a checklist of what they're allowed to say and do. This is a scandal. I'm a university professor, and the idea that academic freedom is now going to be sacrificed to a political group who will tell us what we can say, it's a real scandal. So, for example, I mean, I can't resist it. It's not anti-Semitic to say fuck Israel and fuck Zionism. grounds, as I've said, including genocide, war crimes and incitement. And how is it that Tony Burke can exercise his discretion without applying those criteria? And this reveals a great deal about Australia's commitment or lack of commitment to international law. In fact, just on that point, the Migration Act gives the Minister for Home Affairs, Tony Burke, the discretion to refuse an application for a visa, which he's done on other cases in really relatively smaller and less significant cases. And the point is, if the applicant doesn't satisfy the minister, they pass the character test. Herzog doesn't pass the character test. And the whole point is that if he's been involved in inciting a genocide. And of course, this is whether or not the person has been convicted of an offence, and you can still exercise that discretion. In fact, apart from refusing the visa, the alternative, which may well be the case, we would hope, the UN Commissioner Chris Sidoti has suggested that when Herzog arrives, he should be arrested and charged. United Nations representative of international law, he's spoken very eloquently about the legal requirement to arrest someone like the President of Israel. Let me finish on a couple of words. Anthony Albanese, of course, you may not be aware, has become the first leader of a Western nation to be referred to the ICC, the International Criminal Court, for being complicit in the Gaza genocide, and it was a claim that was co-signed by over 100 Australian lawyers. The claim also implicated Foreign Minister Penny Wong and others. And I can't resist on an occasion like this to use my Arabic. I've been learning a bit of Arabic, and on occasions like this occasionally, I can't say too little, too late elbow, but I always say, Tel Hastisi Albanese. Free Palestine, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Slezak. Always an honor to have you. Next up, we're very fortunate again to have someone from the local community, also someone from Teachers for Palestine. It's our good sister, Olivia.
Too much pressure. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings to everyone present here today, and an especially warm welcome to any Aboriginal people here with us. I acknowledge that Punchbowl is located on the traditional unceded lands of the Darug people who have maintained a connection to this region for thousands of years. I'm going to start with an assumption, and forgive me if it sounds uncharitable, but listening to the decisions being made by MINS, Prime Minister Albanese, and our lovely Tony Burke, I can only conclude one thing. They must have had pretty terrible teachers when they were at school. Because I think we can all agree that their knowledge of history and international law could do with some work. So today I'm here as a teacher to help them out. Because they need to be reminded that history matters. Universal human rights matter. And when leaders forget these, the consequences, as we are witnessing right now, can be devastating. As a teacher, I am required to tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. I teach young people that history is not just dates and names, but patterns. That when power is unchecked, that when human lives are ranked, where some lives are deemed more worthy than others, and that when the law is bent for political convenience, catastrophe follows. As a mother, I carry something heavier. I carry the images of Gaza that no parent ever wants to see. Children crushed under rubble, children burned, children starved, orphaned, entire classrooms wiped out. Not metaphorically, literally. This is not a tragedy without authors. It's not an accident of war. This is the deliberate policy of a rogue, genocidal apartheid state. And yet, in the middle of this slaughter, our Prime Minister has chosen to invite the President of Israel, Isaac Herzog, to Australia as a welcome guest. Shame. It seems that when Tony Burke was making his decision, he wasn't briefed by a teacher, because in New South Wales, teachers are told to be very explicit in our instruction and explanation. So let me do that for you today, Tony. It's a shame that you're not here because you run away every time we try to talk to you about this issue. He's a coward. He's a coward. So let me do that for you today. This man, who I think we can all see happens to be signing bombs, headed for Gaza, criminal, has presided over a genocide during which time bombs, like those he's kindly photographed, have killed over hundreds of thousands of people, like these, innocent babies and children. In any other situation, if someone facing credible allegations of serious crimes came to Australia, the expectation would be a serious criminal investigation, not a ceremonial welcome. Let's be clear, because clarity at a time like this matters. Isaac Herzog is not a neutral figure. He is a head of state who has publicly denied civilian innocence, who has erased the distinction between combatant and child, and whose statements have been cited by legal experts and human rights experts as incitement to genocide. Not under the Genocide Convention, which we have ratified, incitement to genocide is in itself a crime. Not rhetoric, not symbolism, an abhorrent, insidious crime. That same convention imposes a legal duty on states like Australia, a duty to prevent genocide, a duty not to be complicit, and a duty to act when there is a serious threat. That duty exists right now. Not later, not when we will look back and say, why did nobody stop this? Right now, Mr. Tony Burke. So when Australia rolls out the red carpet, when it offers diplomatic legitimacy and public welcome to a leader accused of inciting mass killing, that is not neutrality, that is complicity. This very week, Premier Minns has moved to extend the powers of NESA, to those who are not teachers here. NESA is our governing authority. And he has threatened teachers with dismissal for so-called hate speech. Let me be absolutely clear. Telling the truth is not hate speech. Teaching international law is not hate speech. Naming the brutal assault on Palestine a genocide is not hate speech. Standing in solidarity with murdered children and innocent civilians is not hate speech. What is hateful is trying to intimidate teachers into silence while children are being slaughtered in their thousands. Teachers will not be silenced. We have never been silenced. And history shows why. Because Australia has been here before. For those of us who are old enough to remember, not myself, thankfully, in 1966, at the height of the Vietnam War, US President Lyndon Johnson visited Australia. People protested. They laid down in the streets. They refused to cooperate with an unjust war. And what was the response of the New South Wales Premier at the time, Sir Robert Askin? Riding in a car with the president, he saw the protesters blocking the road and shouted, "Drive over the bastards." That is Australian history. And I don't think I need to talk about the parallels that we're seeing. Only today in the newspaper we're hearing that Chris Minns plans on shutting down the CBD on Monday, closing roads, cancelling public transport to make sure that people don't get to that protest. So Premier Minns, I offer you not an abstract question. Are you following Askin's lead? Askin, a member of the Liberal Party, by the way. Which side of history are you on? Will you be remembered as someone who listened to the people of New South Wales? Or will you continue to forge your legacy as someone who demonised protesters, demanding justice, and treated them as something to simply be pushed aside? When governments criminalise protest, silence teachers, and welcome those accused of mass murder, they are not preserving order, and they are certainly not promoting social cohesion. They are repeating history's ugliest chapters. And Tony Burke, this is where the lesson becomes really, really clear. We are outside your office for a reason. You have betrayed us. Those of us in the Muslim vote who have been associated with that amazing movement, we warned the Wassim constituents that you were a traitor. We told them that a vote for you was a vote for genocide. But many still trusted you, and we will never forgive you, and we will never, ever forget. You are the Immigration Minister, and you have legal authority. You have the discretion, you have the responsibility. Under Australian law, we know visas can be revoked, and we've seen visas cancelled for far less. We've done it before. So don't tell us it cannot be done. Don't tell us your hands are tied. If Australia can deny entry to refugees, whistleblowers and activists, then Australia, I think, can deny access to leaders accused of inciting genocide. So hear us clearly, no red carpet for genocide, no welcome for incitement, no visas for war criminals, and if the government thinks that we will lie down quietly, they should remember 1966 because the protesters were right then and we are right now. Send Herzog home.
Thank you, Olivia. From one teacher to another, I would like to call up in a short moment a good friend Wassim Al-Hajj. Nowadays, most of our focus is on Gaza, but just a few decades back, when the state of Israel was created, there was a mass ethnic cleansing, a depopulation which occurred. In the city of Haifa, we had a pre-war Palestinian population of 65,000. Within a few months, that population, even before the state of Israel came into existence, that population of Palestinians reduced to around 3,500, which represents a total decrease of around 95% in the city. We're talking almost 80 years ago, but alhamdulillah, fortunately, we're blessed to have our brother here who is a descendant of someone from that city, someone who survived the Nakba all those years ago. So I'd like to give Wassim the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Bismillah, وما توكلي ولا اعتمادي إلا على الله. I praise Allah and I put my trust and reliance on Allah. I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land where we meet. Liv tells me it's Daruk people, is that right, Liv? And pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. I would like to begin with some verses. And I'm Muslim. I understand this is a diverse group, but this is part of my faith and it's something that's important for me. So I will reference something that is important to me. In verses of the Quran, Allah subhanahu says, وَلِكُلٍّ دَرَجَاتٌ مِّمَّا عَمِلُوا وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِغَافِلٍ عَمَّا يَعْمَلُونَ وَرَبُّكَ الْغَنِيُّ ذُو الرَّحْمَةِ إِن يَشَأْ يُذْهِبْكُمْ وَيَسْتَخْلِفْ مِن بَعْدِكُم مَّا يَشَاءُ كما أنشأكم من ذرية قوم آخرين إنما توعدون لآت وما أنتم بمعجزين قل يا قوم اعملوا على مكانتكم إني عامل فسوف تعلمون من تكون له عاقبة الدار إنه لا يفلح الظالمون. And I will translate these verses. And what they mean is, for all there will be degrees or ranks according to what they did. And your Lord is not unaware of what they do. And your Lord is the rich, the self-sufficient, full of mercy. If He wills, He can replace you in your place, make whom He wills. يذهبكم, remove you and replace you. ويستخلف من بعدكم ما يشاء, and place you whom He wills as successors, as He raised you from the seed or descendants of others before you, of other people. قوم آخرين. Verily, that which you are promised will verily come to pass, and you cannot escape. And that's a reference, escaping from the punishment of Allah. Say, and this is where Muhammad ﷺ has been told to say, قُلْ يَا قَوْمِ, O my people, work according to your way. Surely I too am working in my way. And you will come to know for which of us will be the happy end in the hereafter. لِمَنْ تَكُنْ لَهُ عَاقِبَةُ الدَّارِ, positive end. Certainly the Zalimun, the ones who are oppressors, the wrongdoers, will not be successful. So for those of us who are gathered, witnessing what we are witnessing in Palestine, in Yemen, in Lebanon, in other parts of the world, various parts of the world. And if I was to list, I'm not sure where I would end. There is so much oppression and so much wrongdoing. I remind you of these verses, and a reminder to me and a reminder to you on this blessed Friday, that we do what we can. That is our part. That is our obligation. And our trust is in Allah. Our trust is in God. On the outcome, we are all here doing what we can to continue to support justice, calling for an end to genocide. It's a good thing. We shouldn't have to say that. Call for an end of Zionist terrorist attacks in Lebanon. Free Lebanon from the occupying Zionist forces in South Lebanon, who just dropped some chemical on the other day. But we are also here for our own liberation. In a world where injustice grows and evil spreads. We have heard of the converted pedophiles in positions of leadership. I mean, that was a recent release in the Epstein files. These creatures are fit for prison cells, not leadership. There is hypocrisy. There is injustice. We have corrupt leaders also in Australia who have passed foul laws that are unjust. Retrospective criminal laws? In no society in history have I ever heard of retrospective criminal laws. How does that make sense? How can I go back in time to charge someone that they're a criminal. Okay, it's bizarre, right? Now, Tony Burke, his MP here, member for Wassim, was a key colluder in driving these unjust laws and even urged Parliament, from what I recall hearing, to not debate amendments in order to rush those laws through, those hateful laws. Let's take a moment to presume that Tony Burke is not an anti-Muslim Islamophobic politician. Let's just presume that for a second.
Difficult.
Wouldn't he have come out at this time, while the local community here, in this suburb, in this region, in this electorate, has been under attack? When Premier Chris Minns has been blaming Muslims and Palestinians and for events unrelated to us, and restricting freedoms, wouldn't Tony Burke come out to speak up for his community who he's been elected to represent? When a local councillor in Liverpool incites hatred against Muslims, when a hijabi sister is attacked in Redfern, when a Muslim cemetery is desecrated in Kemps Creek, and when local mosques here, including local Nakba mosque not far from here, receiving threats, or another mosque attack vandal coming, wouldn't Tony Burke, as the MP for Wassim, think of the Muslim population in his electorate, a large percentage, many of whom voted against him, come out to support their rights and their safety because some voted for it? Maybe they'll reconsider their vote for the next election. Have you heard him do this? Have you heard him come out and speak up for the Muslim population experiencing hatred? Yes or no? I haven't heard Tony Burke come out. And you're right, other politicians, there is another politician office there and many others, I haven't heard them coming out in general. There are some, very few. This certainly has not. So, when the corrupt ruling elite invite terrorists into Australia and disregard Australian citizens, that is us, in general, people power must prevail. Simple. When Chris Minns, as Premier of New South Wales, comes after the freedom and rights of all civilians in New South Wales and bans protests, we resist. There's a protest on Monday, 5:30 p.m. at Town Hall. Show up. When they threaten our employment and income, as Minns has done and Olivia has touched on, this week, overnight changing the code of conduct for teachers, we must resist. Now, allegedly, the changes are related to hate speech, but who defines what that term means? And my trust is very limited. When I myself was driven out of my job in the New South Wales Department of Education in 2024 for wearing my graffiti as a Palestinian man. That is hatred. The people who propagate hatred are not apt or able to prevent hatred, for they are the propagators of it. Darkness does not create light. Light comes, but not from the darkness itself. At the end of the long night, we see the sun rise. It's not the night itself that turns light. So when Minns congratulates Israel, so-called, during the genocide of Palestinians in May 2025, and received a letter of thanks from Herzog, this president, so-called, who's coming, who signs bonds that then kill Palestinians, but also others. Let's not forget Zoe Franklin. Let's not forget that Zoe Franklin was targeted as an aid worker, an Australian. Her life is as valid and as valuable and as precious as every other human. And let's not forget that. When this man allows a criminal to come into Australia who has killed fellow Australians, who have supported the killing of and genocide of Palestinians, who just a few days ago has been reported desecrating the graves of Australians in Gaza, and it's a different question for you to ask, why are there graves in Gaza of Australians? That's a totally different question for you to go and research. But this person's inviting a criminal here and saying this is about unity. Unity of who and with what? We are discerning people. We do not accept everything that is thrown to us as a human society. There is good, there is bad, That is the reality. And if people wish to align themselves with a murderer or a genocide supporter or an inciter of hatred, someone who the UN Commission of Inquiry has considered having incited genocide, that's a reflection of that person, but it does not reflect us as Australian people, or as people, or as humans in general across the world. Now, Means, back to Means. You know, so we should remind Means that he serves us, he's a public servant. He should be serving us. He's not an emperor, he's not a king, he's a premier elected to this position to represent the state of Cogra, which he does not, in my experience, as an electorate, as a member of the electorate of Cogra. Means does not represent me. I'll make that very clear. Means, after receiving the letter of congratulation or thanks for his unwavering support from the president, so-called plot. That's the name. Now, if he's received that letter, and then he's opened the doors of Sydney, welcoming someone who kills people, does that sound like he supports justice and peace? What do you think? No. He serves us and should represent us. And on the character test grounds of, deciding who can and can't come into Australia, Mr. Burke, or Burke as I call him. Now, what about Khalid Baidoun? He gave a speech and was sent out of the country. His visa was revoked. The words he used were taken out of context to drive him out. We've had people come in here who have spread hate. And this is another person who really, if things were fair, wouldn't be entering Australia under Australian laws, existing Australian laws. We're not asking for them to be changed. We're not the group that decides that needs laws to be changed to be, supported. It's just using actual laws that are currently existing. That's all we're saying. Implement the current laws. What about these other people who are currently being targeted? Did someone hear that someone's written to the Writers' Festival here about her after she's been forced out of the Adelaide Writers' Festival? What about the Sydney Biennale, where the Jewish Board of Deputies has now been invited to review the Biennale to ensure they are in accordance, it seems, with what they would approve. This is on the back of articles and including comments by some politicians to have their public funding revoked. So I remind you all, we are humans. We are alive. Power is a concept. Power is a concept. We might be a small group here, but we are also part of a larger group across the world. And a small group, by the way, can overcome great injustice. And I get a quote from the Quran about a group of people. And when they went to enter a city, they were afraid, the group was afraid. But this is what happened. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قال رجلان من الذين يخافون أنعم الله عليهم ادخلوا عليهم الباب فإذا دخلتموه فإنكم غالبون وعلى الله فتوكلوا إن كنتم مؤمنين. Two men of those who feared Allah, whom Allah had bestowed upon them favor, said to the group, enter upon those who oppose you at the gate. And when you have entered, you shall surely be victorious. Not on Allah you should rely if you are believers. And that is my advice to everyone, whether you're a Muslim or not. Have faith, have hope. Almost nothing is impossible. As a teacher, this is something I have taught my students for over a decade. Almost nothing is impossible. That is my motto. Another motto of mine, patience and persistence are key to success. We have been patient. We have been persistent. We will continue to be persistent. Written laws will not stop us from speaking the truth. Written laws will not stop us from marching, or from walking, or from sitting, or from standing. We are humans, we are alive, and we enact our rights. So stay steadfast, have hope, and keep going, and have courage. I conclude with a reminder. For my own self, وَمَا النَّصْرُ إِلَّا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ, and verily victory only comes from Allah. This darkness will come to an end.
Wesam, we have a couple of speakers remaining coming towards the end of the program. If I could invite our sister Mariam, I can't quite see her at the moment. Over here. Mariam, you may know, is a local activist who's been very involved in many of the issues, particularly in the Muslim vote, but also outside the Muslim vote. Can I invite Mariam? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, Ginagai, and good afternoon to you all. My name is Mariam Tahami, and I stand here today as a settler on stolen land. On the unceded land of the Darul people, I acknowledge that this land has never been surrendered, never been ceded, and never been free from violence. It is our qadr, it is our destiny to live through these defining and devastating times. And let us be clear, never in the history of humanity has such concentrated power existed in the hands of so few. Never before have weapons of such scale, precision, and brutality been used so openly against a trapped civilian population. Never before has a genocide been carried out in real time, streamed, documented, undeniable, and then justified, funded, and applauded by governments that claim to stand for human rights. What we are witnessing is not tragedy. It is not a misunderstanding, and it is not complex. It is deliberate destruction, enabled by the United States and its allies, including Australia. With our tax dollars, with your tax dollars, with our resources, and with our silence and our complicity. And that is why I say to you today, make your solidarity visible. They rely on us being quiet. Make your solidarity very visible. Wear your solidarity shirts wherever you go. Put those stickers back on your cars. What happened to Stand for Palestine stickers? They were everywhere at the beginning of the genocide. They've disappeared, which is a representation of how much we support Palestine in reality. Raise the flags again on your homes and on the streets, because despair is what they want, and we do not despair. We do not despair. Silence is what they want, and we do not be silent, and we refuse to be silent, and that's why we're here today. And let me say something clearly. Empty slogans will not save lives. Recycled statements will not stop the bombs. Stop demanding a ceasefire. I actually don't want to hear anyone say ceasefire again, ever. It only causes massacres, and it only gives the enemy a break to recharge and to reinstall its resources to go back again, harder and more deadlier. Stop accepting language that manages genocide instead of ending it. We want an end to this. End the genocide. End the occupation. End the apartheid, and dismantle the violent settler colonial project. Don't get me wrong, it's hard work and it's a very long journey, but we are all part of it. And the fact that all of you are here today, more than 2 years in, it means you are not going anywhere. If this is on for another decade, we're going to be back here again. Pressure is the only language power understands. And we do not give up, and we will never give up. Now, I have a message for Chris Minns. In a nutshell, Chris Minns, go to hell. Yeah. Your legacy will not be law and order. It will be repression, it will be cowardice, and and it will be remembered as the moment these states chose to criminalize conscience. How much worse can a premier get? How much worse can a colonial fascist figure get? They want us without simple conscience. They've been arresting people for stickers and for t-shirts. How much worse can this get? Christians, you can pass legislation to restrict protest. You can try to silence dissent, but you cannot outlaw thoughts, and you cannot erase the truth.
Amen.
Christians, you are governing on stolen land in a country built on invasion, dispossession, and ongoing indigenous deaths. And you are actively contributing to global violence while pretending to protect social cohesion. Another word we never want to hear again. Let me be very clear. This is not about foreign influence. This is not about conspiracy. And Australia is not being pressured to be part of this. Australia is not controlled by others. Australia is a willing partner. To do this much harm, you have to be a willing partner. You cannot be forced to do this much crime and to cause this much devastation and destruction, and above all, invite the very person who is justifying all of this and rolling out the red carpet for him. Australia is a partner in war, a partner in arms manufacturing, a partner in the destruction of international law. Human rights is gone. International law, it's dying. It's taking its final breath. Not just because of the US, not just because of the apartheid state, but because of Australia. And we need to recognise this and acknowledge it en masse. As one of the youngest colonies, this country has always tried to prove itself, to show that it can match the brutality, the militarism, and authoritarianism of the older empires. And today it is succeeding. When Gazans are told they do not qualify to live, when protesters are told they do not qualify for rights, when entire communities are told they must be silent to be acceptable, this is the same system speaking, and we reject it. Let me address something that has been deliberately distorted and weaponized against us. The word intifada. And yes, I'm allowed to say it. I'm Arabic and it's an Arabic word, and I will say it. Intifada is not a threat. Intifada is not hatred. And intifada is not violence for the sake of violence. Intifada means uprising. It means shaking up. It is the natural human reaction to oppression, suppression, and decades of systematic injustice. It is what happens when the people are strangled by checkpoints, cages, bombs, sieges, stolen land, stolen children, stolen futures, and are told to accept it quietly. Intifada is what every oppressed people in history has done when the world refuses to listen. It is what First Nations here have also done. It is what black communities have done, and it is what anti-colonial movements across the globe have done. You do not get to criminalise the language of resistance while protecting the machinery of oppression. You do not get to condemn an uprising while funding the conditions that make it inevitable. If you fear the word intifada, then maybe you should fear injustice. Because injustice is what creates intifada. We stand here to say our humanity is not conditional, Our solidarity is not negotiable. Our solidarity is not negotiable. And our resistance will not be legislated away. We will keep showing up, and we will keep naming the truth, and we will keep the pressure on until liberation is not a slogan, it's a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariam, for your inspirational talk. And one thing that Mariam mentioned in her talk, she spoke about anti-colonial resistance. Maybe many of us are unaware here, we mentioned at the outset that we stand on Bidjigal land, Bidjigal of the Darug Nation. Just a few hundred metres from where we're standing today, there's Cullen's Park Reserve, a few hundred metres in this direction. In Cullen's Park Reserve, if you go visit there, off Cullen's Road, you'll find a small dilapidated sign there, back from before the council mergers, as Council Canterbury, I believe. And on that sign there, it recalls an incident from 1808. And in that incident, it tells a story of Tedbury, who was a Bidjigal man. At Tedbury, in 1808, not long after the First Fleet and the Second Fleet had come to Sydney, the early settler movements were slowly expanding out from central Sydney. And then one day the Bidjigal people found that there were two white men down towards the stream, and their lands had been all of a sudden partitioned off, okay, where they used to get their subsistence from the local rivers in the region here, including where we are now, all the way down to Saltpan Creek. This is what they lived off. So what Tedbury did was, he found these two men, and he went to protect his land. He went to resist them. And so he attacked the men, and he threw spears so that they fled, and that for a short period their land was reclaimed. And if you go to the Sydney newspaper of the time, you'll find that they described Tedbury as a beast, a man who was just there to plunder for the sake of plunder. The point being that this anti-colonial resistance, people fighting for the sake of the land, people staying strong, people having the courage to live the land, we're here today connected where we are on this land, all the way to Palestine. So, without much further ado, I'd like to invite our final speaker, alhamdulillah, someone close to my heart, Sheikh Wesam Charkawi, local imam, sheikh and scholar, should say Dr. Charkawi, recently completed
Dr. Wesam Charkawi.
In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, and the peace and blessings be upon His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I too want to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land on which we stand today, acknowledge elders past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge any Aboriginal people who might be with us today. I want to hold up this sign before I start and draw your attention to something. When Herzog was signing bombs that would drop on children, there was actually a movement across the world where people were, it was like an auction, where people were spending money and paying money in an effort to put their name on a bomb. Eagle. I want you to imagine the level of twistedness that we're living in a world where people would put their name on a bomb that would target children.
Psychopaths.
We certainly are in a twisted world at the moment. And I'll just leave that sign here at the front so it reminds each and every one of us about the level of depravity that we've sunk into, where we can invite, Australia puts out the red carpet for a man who sees no civilians whatsoever. There are no civilians, as he said. They're all combatants. This is a tragedy that Australia would put out the red carpet for this man at a time when Israel has admitted killing at least 80,000 people. We know the numbers are higher, but they've admitted over 80,000 people. This is on the record. And they're rolling out the red carpet for Isaac Herzog. This will be a stain on Australia, on Tony Burke, on Anthony Albanese, on Penny Wong, for as long as they live, and for as long as Australia has a history. Ladies and gentlemen, today, we're here today, absolutely. And we might not have the huge crowd, but it's the hearts. And the hearts today are pulsating. For what? For justice. And if we don't cling to justice, and if we don't teach justice, and if we don't live by justice, then we'll continue to allow this world on that trajectory of oppression and violence and genocide that we've seen and we continue to see. They say there's a ceasefire, but there's no such thing as a ceasefire. That word was just a cover to continue the abomination and to continue the genocide just under a different umbrella. So I just want to allude to the fact that some people what they've said, So Penny Wong says, look, there's a context. So Penny Wong appeared on the early morning show and said there's a context why Herzog is coming to Australia. She said there's a context. So let me give Penny Wong a context. At the moment they are still pulling children out of the rubble in Gaza. Body pieces, body bags. The families are putting the pieces of their children in body bags, still to date in body bags. Let that be context for you, Penny Wong. The doctors performing the surgery at the moment are still performing the surgery without anesthetic. I want you to imagine that doctors have to decide, because they have 10 or 20 people before them. They have to decide who lives and who dies. Who lives and who dies. And I still remember speaking to a doctor who went to Gaza and who was working under those conditions, who said it was the most horrific thing I've ever seen, that the Israeli Defense Force or the ODF, the Occupational Defense Force, would purposely put bombs in cans, tin cans, and when the children would go to search for food and they would open that tin can, it would explode and blow off their fingers. What a shame. So they brought Tony Burke and they called Tony Burke on the 3rd of May, and before the 3rd of May, Tony Burke is the friend of the community. That's what they said. Tony Burke, leave him alone. Tony Burke is our friend. Who needs enemies when you have Tony Burke? So they sold Tony Burke as the friend of this community. Absolutely, phony Tony. Absolutely. Tony Burke knew about the fake caravan explosives. He knew. And when Peter Dutton, Peter Dutton, when he came out and he said that, well, what was this thing about the explosives? No one briefed me. Tony Burke came out and he undid himself. He said, well, he should have been briefed by the Australian Federal Police. Tony Burke was briefed by the Australian Federal Police, and he passed laws, amended laws in Parliament, which not many people knew about, right, at the time, but he passed laws knowing that the caravan explosives was fake, and he passed laws knowing that was the case. So Tony Dutton, Tony Burke, who needs friends, who needs enemies when you have somebody like Tony Burke? So ladies and gentlemen, we cannot forget, right? And we cannot forget that we come up to the next federal election. Let us not ever forget what Tony Burke has done. They have passed the most Islamophobic laws that this country has ever seen. The most Islamophobic laws that this country has ever and will ever experience. And that is under a Labour government, and they said that Labour would not be worse, but look what Labour turned out to be. And in the words of Chris Sidoti, who said, it was a crazy idea in the first place to bring someone like Herzog out of here. This is nothing but an endorsement. An endorsement of what? What's the endorsement? What message are you sending to the world? Kill as many as you can, we'll roll out the red carpet. Commit a genocide and we'll roll out the red carpet. Lie and steal and deceive the world and we will roll out the red carpet. What legacy are you leaving? What are you teaching the children to come in the next generation? So ladies and gentlemen, We cannot escape what the world has found, genocide findings. You know why Labour has made a policy? The Australian Labour government has made a policy not to utter the word genocide. And the reason why it won't utter the word genocide, the reason why it's made a policy is because if it does, it will have to investigate itself, because Australia is a part of the Genocide Convention and the Arms Trade Treaty. So what that means is the first protocol that must be executed is that you must investigate yourself. You are giving arms to Israel. You've armed and enabled a genocide. You are the supporter and enabler of this genocide. You've said that there are exceptions to the rule. You've basically said do your worst, but there are exceptions to the rule. Exceptions to the rule unless you are Palestinian. Unless the victim is a Palestinian, you are the exception to the rule. That when war crimes are unacceptable except if you are Palestinian. So ladies and gentlemen, make noise. And make noise and make a lot of noise if you reject the coming of Herzog here to Australia.
We reject it.
Absolutely. Today is not symbolic. We don't stand here as a symbolic gesture. We certainly don't stand here just for the means of standing here. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the protest is not the end. The protest is definitely not the end. We want justice. We want accountability. And justice and accountability demands that we all stand. Brothers and sisters, guests, ladies and gentlemen, I have seen personally, I've mentored a lot of people in my life. I've spoken to so many people across the life that I've lived, the years that I've lived. When you fail to stand for justice, and when you stand on the side of oppression, it changes you, does something to you. At one stage, a long time ago, used to think that people were somehow beholden. Maybe people on the inside couldn't express themselves. I've absolutely shifted fundamentally my view. Tony Burke is not a good man. Tony Burke is not a good man. You are standing. Your foot is on their necks, Tony. Your foot is on their necks. You've enabled them. You've welcomed them. You've brought them onto this land. You do not care about the lives that have been lost. You don't care about ruh. You don't care about these children. All of you claim to speak for women and children, but where are those rights today? So ladies and gentlemen, I want to give absolute credit. The sisters who came up and put these flags out here today, you absolutely have to be commended. The hearts that have come out here today, everybody that's come out here today. When you stand for justice, it changes your life. It absolutely changes your life, and it becomes something to live by, and it's something that you leave for your children and the next generation. And I absolutely concur. The change is coming, and it's going to be effective. We don't know how, but by God it is coming. By God it is coming, and by God it is coming, inshallah. So let's say no red carpet for genocide. No welcome for war crimes. No complicity in our name. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, do what you need to do. Be at that protest on Monday. Monday is an important protest. Stand. Speak. You have to be there at the forefront. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? We must stand. We must voice. You know, it's interesting. There was a study that was conducted. I said this the other day. I'll repeat it here again. But there was a study that was done that found that people who, among the fires that happened in Australia, that took the hose and stayed where their houses were, and they tried to put out the fire that was happening there and then, right? They said that their trauma levels were far lower than people who were not there at the forefront trying to fight for something. They were further away, and they found that the trauma levels are different. It's like somebody, like a paramedic. They said the people who always turn up to put out these fires and to help people, why is it they have this resilience? They have this resilience. I'll tell you why. because they stood for something. They stood for these values, they stood for these principles. Because when you stand for justice, something happens inside of you. And you know what happens to society? It has a cascading effect. And everybody benefits. Every single one benefits when there's people like you who turn up, even in whatever numbers, but they turn up and they say, not in my name. Whatever word I have to utter, I will utter it. You are forever changed, you are forever better. And those who did not stand, every time that they put their heads on those pillows will be nothing but regret, and nothing but remorse. And let me tell you, when these people leave and when these people eventually seek power, and that'll happen one day, nobody wants to hear a damn thing that they have to say. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming out here today. Give yourselves a round of applause. Turn up on Monday, make sure you turn up on Monday, make sure you keep protesting, make sure you write to the ministers, and make sure that you turn up in numbers. And let me tell you, our unity, our absolute unity is being there at the forefront. We cannot leave these gaps. We cannot leave this void. We've got to turn up in our numbers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And before I go, Wassim has told me about a campaign. It's an important campaign. It's somebody who's putting a case forward against Herzog, and they need money. There is a GoFundMe page. Put your name to it. Come and see Wassim at the end. There is a QR code. There is a link. See him, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Sheikh Wesam. No red carpet, no to complicity in our names. Inshallah, we look forward to seeing everyone Monday, 5:30 p.m. Monday. Inshallah, we'll see everyone there. Have a great evening. Assalamu alaikum. Come see Christine at the front here, sign petition. And Wesam here.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, let's see how big the crowd is. Oh.
At 12 p.m. Hyde Park. So please try and make it there. Thank you.
Well, that looks like it's it. Yeah, I think there's probably 100, maybe 100 people, maybe 50 to 100 people. It's very hard to say. It's always hard to say. So yeah. Oh, there's a projection here. Sponsored by Domino's. The cops are moving in now to, I think they're just, you know, the head cop with the hat on, he's just coming in to make sure it's wound up correctly, I guess. And that's pretty much it now. I'd say it's pretty much it. The projection will run for a while, I'd say, organised. And a bit of toing and froing, and the big cop is over there talking to the other cops, telling them, yeah, all done boys, all done. So alright, we'll sign out.
Good evening, Peter.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming to Tony's office. What brought you here today?
Oh goodness, well, we're facing a lot of crises after 2 years of genocide, and Tony Burke is up to his neck in the crisis of inviting the President of Israel, who's been cited for inciting a genocide.
Right.
So it's very serious.
Would you say that the Australian government and Tony Burke are actually supporting a genocide?
Oh, well, of course they are. I mean, look, for one thing, the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, have said practically nothing for 2 years. Now, that's pretty serious.
And it seems like a lot of anti-genocide people are they're running around and going through the hoops.
Well, the protesters are being now increasingly harassed, and They're passing all sorts of laws to prevent them using certain slogans. This is awful when there's a huge outpouring of popular support for Palestine in the general public.
Great. I noticed you and Jane, who are both Jewish background, have come out to this Punchbowl area. Have you felt any intimidation or threats here?
Yeah, no. This is where I feel the safest among my Palestinian and Muslim friends. The intimidation I feel is in the Jewish suburb where I live.
Oh, no.
I get really bad hostility there. In fact, I was assaulted there.
This might offend a lot of people.
Well, I don't wear this in my Jewish suburb, but
Okay.
but they know me, and I've had a lot of very bad hostility from the people in the eastern suburbs where I live.
Good on you for standing up. And
Well, look,
thank very much.
there's no choice. Look, my parents are Holocaust survivors, and I learned lessons from them, which the Jewish community should learn, but they don't. You have to stand up for injustice, and we learned what it means to be complicit with the crimes. And
Which country were they from?
I was born where my parents were from Romania.
From Romania.
Yeah, my father was a lawyer in Romania, and my mother was there, and I was born in Romania.
Okay, so you as a Jewish person, do you have a right to go and take citizenship in occupied Palestine?
Oh, I do actually.
You do?
I mean, the irrelevant right, which we shouldn't have, because
Right.
Israel gives all Jews the right, which there's no basis for it.
So this guy that spoke here, Wassim, his grandfather, great-grandfather, from Haifa, and he has no right to
I have
return.
more
What do
rights
you
than
think
him,
of
which is one of the scandals of the state of Israel, that it gives any Jew rights, which the Palestinians who actually fled and are still holding the keys, as we know, to their house, they don't have the right to go back. This is one of the many scandals of the state of Israel.
With the Zionism, is it a political ideology or is there some religious, biblical justification for
No,
it?
there can't be. Look at the history of it. Zionism was in a way invented by Theodor Herzl, who was an atheist. He was a Jew, but he wasn't a believer. And it's got nothing to do with the religion. It's to do with a political program, which is really a racist, exterminationist program. It's an ethnic cleansing. And if you know the history of Zionism, it's a very ugly history. And Zionism is a political program. So the idea that Jews want to identify themselves with it is simply inviting racist anti-Semitism, because there are many Jews in the world, especially in New York and places, that are very religious, ultra-Orthodox Jews that say exactly the religion has nothing to do with the political program of Zionism, or should not have.
Yeah. What I've noticed lately, that there are a lot of people in Israel or Jewish community around who actually justify the killing of civilians. And I've read up about rabbis who bring up the justification through the Amalek ideology from the Old Testament. What do you say about that?
Look, I've talked about that a bit. In fact, the Israeli educator Nurit Peled Elhanan, she's a very interesting case, very tragic family. She's an educator, professor of education. She has spoken about, and others, Israel Shahak, an academic, wrote about the long tradition, rabbinical tradition, where, for example, the rabbis have these racist, degrading views, and their really awful racist books are given to the soldiers before they go into Gaza, where they have these demeaning racist views of Palestinians and everybody else, and they're actually giving this kind of doctrine to the soldiers before they go into Gaza. This is a horrible and really immoral background.
I recall there was a story about that in 2008, one of the Shabbat IDF rabbis, I forget his name, but he was basically justifying the killing and the expansion of the Greater Israel
It's a very
as
ugly
a commandment.
A very ugly history, and in fact it explains why, as Gideon Levy, the Israeli journalist, and Norman Finkelstein, the American academic, said, Israel is a rogue state. It is a lunatic state that is awash with racism. 90% or some huge number of Israelis not only agree with what Israel has done in Gaza, a genocide, a large number of those think Israel hasn't gone far enough. This is a kind of a pathological state with a bunch of